here we are at putting the handles on the giveaway knives. Now I'm probably only going to show Shane's one on this because I'll go into a bit more detail on how to do a 3-part glue up with Rick's one, and all the rest follow that procedure. So I'm probably only going to show Shane's one. Now, as you can see, Chrissy's one already got handle scales, so I don't need to touch that at the bench saw here. Same with Paulla's one. The timber is already in scales, so don't need to cut it. Shane and Renee's. Renee's got this lovely piece of mango wood, and Shane has this beautiful piece of silky oak. They both need to be cut. Now you'll notice everyone's got their name on it, and it's also got the fittings on it, so that way I can keep track of it. I will often, if it's an order knife, put the type of blade on it as well. That way when someone picks a piece of wood, I have their name, the type of knife, the metal that's being used, all sitting there with a post-it note attached, and helps me to keep it straight. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is have a look at each block and try and find the prettiest face on it. So that there is absolutely gorgeous. It has the spotting that silky oak gets. That has the spotting, but a lot tighter. No spotting on that side, and a little bit of spotting on that side. So we look at the end grain, and the end grain's going that way. So if we cut off our best side, which is this one, and then take a second cut, that should give us the same sort of spotting as what we've got there. This is pretty much all I use this saw for. It's got a nice clean cutting blade in it, lots of teeth, very fine, and it's set to about 1/2 inch. So all I cut on this one is cutting scales out of blocks. And you'll notice the guard's off. That's so you guys can see it. If I leave the guard on, you're not going to see a thing. That looks really dramatic in there. That looks beautiful. I'm gonna actually try and slice another piece and see whether that drama carries through, in which case I'll take the 2 middle pieces. Okay, that looks magnificent, and that looks pretty good too. Yep, I reckon we're going to take those 2 pieces, and that is going to be our handle. Okay, with our cut timber, we want to make sure that we can clean up any saw marks, anything like that. So we've got a nice flat surface to glue with. I have a really flat platen on the belt grinder, so I'll just come directly back to it. All right, our next step is to put our pinholes in. So you want to work out which end is the most dramatic part of the figure, which for this one is certainly this end. And that's the bit you want on the widest part of the knife. Put that first pinhole in. Once that pinhole's cut, put a pin in it, lock it all in place. So I'll do the one at the far end next. And again, we'll just put a pin in there. Just want to make sure that everything's sitting in place and there's no jiggle. And lastly we do the center one. Okay, when you're doing 3, they will tend to get a little bit tight. Right, there we are, all set up to be a handle. Now you can cut the excess material off to start getting it closer down to the shape. I find it just as easy to use a high grip belt and just grind it down. So that's what we'll do next. It doesn't need to be perfect at this stage. I just want to get it to the rough shape. Doesn't matter if I've got spots hanging out because I've still got to grind that away once I glue it on. I just want to have it pretty close up here and also under here so I can set the shape for the front. And that is our next part. So we can take our blade out and we can work on that front part. It's down a length, it's clear of the maker's mark. So that is looking just about perfect. Next thing we want to do, same as if we're putting a bolster on, is clean up these ends, because once you've got the handle complete, you can't clean them up. So that's our next step. To do this, I'm going to use a bevel gauge, which is an adjustable table. It adjusts for the angle exactly the same as I would for a metal bolster. All finished to 400 grit. Now 400 is as high as I go on handles. I do know people that go to 3000, that sort of thing. Most of the blades I make are workers. So I don't want to go to 3000 and make them super slick. So 400's a fine enough finish for me. Yeah, by the time you wax it at 400, it's pretty slick anyway. If I go to 3000, then I'm gonna end up with a handle that's too slick for a knife that's too sharp. All right, so there it is, all prepared. Let's go inside and glue it up. Now, first thing we want to do is make sure everything is nice and clean. So just a bit of rubbing alcohol on a rag and water wipe. So we're just making sure there's no oils, whether they be finger oils or machine oils or anything like that on there. Okay, we want to give our knife a wipe down. Exactly the same thing. And lastly, all of our pins. And when I do my pins, you might see it, there's a slight chamfer on the end there. That's the end that's going to go in. So I grab it by the other end when I'm doing the work. And again with that one, might be a little bit more obvious as that chamfer on the edge, just makes it easier for it to go in the hole. Now we get our glue, and for this I am using the West Systems G-Flex. I've also used Blade Bond. Both are really good glues. It was just a bit cheaper for me to get the G-Flex, so that's why I've gone with that one. It is a 24-hour cure time on it, so you have plenty of time to work with it. We don't want a really thick coat because it will all squeeze out if you overcoat it. Ideally we want a bit in the holes. Putting a little bit of glue on the pin. Press it up in the hole and getting the glue into the hole. Pin number 1. Pin number 2, same thing, that little bit of glue. Then down in the hole with it. Okay, now I'm going to stop right there. With 3 pins, it tends to find it really hard if you try and put too many pins in at one time. And I save that lanyard pin, which is the strongest one and the one that goes straight the easiest. I tend to save it for last. Okay, so again, gluing it up. A little bit of glue in the holes. Got on that pin. A bit of a press. Pin 2. Press it home. So we've got a little bit of bulge out of the glue on both sides. Okay, last we do our lanyard pin. Okay. I'll poke it in the hole from both sides so I know I've got glue around it. And sometimes they get a little stubborn. So I'll knock all of that flush. Like I said, the reason I save this big pin for last is it's the stronger pin. Sometimes we need to give the wood a bit of a twist, and that pin will do that. Okay. Just protect my kitchen bench. Okay, that's all set. And lastly, we need to squeeze it up while that glue sets. And I find these little spring clamps work ideally for that. So we just set it up like that. Last but not least, a little bit more of the alcohol. I'm just going to clean around the front of the handle, just to make sure if anything's squeezed out, I've got it. Same on this side. There it is, all clamped up, all glued up. So we will leave this sit for 24 hours so that all that glue can go off. As I said, it's got a 24-hour cure time. So in 24 hours, then it will be ready for us to go through and shape the handle. All right, thank you very much everyone for watching, and bye for now.